Live from the BoD studios, it is Playin and Slayin, episode number 78. On tonight's episode, we are going to talk about Adepticon and all the fun that we had there. But for now, here I am, Ty, with Josh and Troy, ready to get into all sorts of fun. It's been a tough day, guys, so I'm going to need your help here to stay positive in light of current Warhammer events. But we do have a loaded kind of slate of our Adepticon that we're going to recap and talk about what we did, what we played, what we saw, what we bought, all sorts of stuff. So should be a lot of fun. But before that, when you're playing and slaying, it's important to stay hydrated. What are we cracking open to drink, Troy?
Poor Farm Pills from Company Brewing, which is it says they're in Center Street, Milwaukee. I've never heard of them. But I guess I did buy this. I bought this at downtown, so it makes sense.
There you go.
I think it was I had a gift certificate to, I don't know if you guys, Bartolotta's. You should get on Bartolotta's if you have a Bartolotta's at all. Get on their little app. And we have a Bartolotta downtown kitchen in our building downtown. And then every year for their birthday, it's the best thing. They give you $20 for your birthday. And I usually am trying to find stuff to get. And basically, they also carry beer at Downtown Kitchen. And so this year I went and they don't have a lot, but it's
like little 4-packs or 6-packs.
Yeah, 4-packs, 6-packs. They also had some, they had a really good, actually a non-alcoholic seltzer, but it was like a margarita seltzer and some gin and tonic thing that I got for my wife. For that. So that's what I did for my gift certificate. I didn't buy food. I went and I cleaned out their overpriced alcohol fridge and nice. Took that. And I think that was one of the things. This is one of the things I stole from there. So good. It's again kind of a straightforward lager. Good. Quench your thirst.
Nice and crisp.
Yep. Only 4.7 ABV. So
sweet. Drinkable.
Excellent. Josh, what are you drinking?
I have
with your cool Adepticon t-shirt.
Yeah, you like that, huh? Troy's got
his too.
Yeah, I just don't have my camera angle right. Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I tipped down a little bit so you could see the shirt. I have Dead Billionaire, Liquid Death.
Nice.
Yep.
I've been ordering those, going through what feels like an 8-pack every 3 or 4 days. I need the slow my consumption down.
I do like it. I do use it as a during the day at work drink, or either working at home for work drink too. It seems like it goes pretty good. So I'm
gonna show my can before I talk about what I have.
What?
Does anybody recognize this guy? And there's birds for a reason. Seattle Mariners.
Is he a Mariner?
Seattle Mariners, great. Randy Johnson.
Is that
this is a Jandy Ronson from No Boat Brewing in Snoqualmie, Washington, which is just up near Seattle there. But the infamous incident where he was throwing a pitch and a passing gull or pigeon or something was struck and obliterated by it. So there are all of the birds flying on the can.
And obliterated is the right term. Yeah.
And Randy, it's a double IPA. I think it's dry hop. It's got Mosaic and Centennial.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah, it's good stuff. Matthew brought that to Adepticon along with a few other Heater Allen lagers that he sent me home with, and this is the last one that I had left, and I saved it just for this episode. The Jandy Ronson from No Boat Brewing.
Cool. So for our West Coast listeners, they might be able to find it somewhere else by them. Otherwise, you got to know somebody.
Right.
And have
Yeah,
a plane.
it is potent though. That carries a bit of a punch. So it should last me all episode. And I should actually get a glass for it. I feel like a savage
But the can is so
drinking into
cool.
it
That's
can.
like
The can is
right?
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like this can might get rinsed out and put like on a shelf or something just because it's
Yeah.
very awesome.
For more shows like this, check out the Goonhammer Media Network. More info at media.goonhammer.com.
All right, guys, let's get into what we've been playing and hobbying our usual banter. We're going to try to omit what we played at Adepticon, though, since we'll cover kind of events and what was done there. So I think since last we recorded, we've gotten a D&D session in. I think Troy was absent for it because it was post Adepticon when you went on vacation up to Door County. But Josh, I believe, may have some commentary about how the adventure went.
Yeah. So I was absent the time prior to that, where we were somehow got stuck in the prison of a god, and I don't know the full story there, but yeah, we were sort of stuck there because we portaled there, I believe.
He just jumped in. Yeah.
There were some choices without a lot of forethought. I'll just say that. Like,
fair enough.
Yeah, there are certain members of our party who just act first and think later, and then the rest of us were like, they're probably going to die. We probably should go with them. That is kind of how that worked. That's how we got there. Yeah,
that makes complete sense. Yep.
Yeah, that checks out.
So we went through a whole bunch of iterations of how do we get out of here, and I forget exactly who it was.
A mysterious hermit in the place had given you an item, and then Heath had his gauntlets.
Yeah, and Heath punched a hole in the wall, I believe, and that we were slowly losing air because on the other side of the wall was the abyss, the nothingness, right? So then it became like, well, now we really need to get out of here sooner than later, right? So I ended up using this wishbone, which was sort of a limited wish to get out. And Robin and I forget who he pulled with, but he ended up winning, and he used a limited wish to get us to a sewer portal in Varen. And there was some other scandalousness happening too on the side. And I think it had something to do with which happened next, which was Robin is in some sort of duel with a powerful sorcerer on a ship, and I forget the name of the ship, and I forget the name of the guy.
Yeah, so Paul's character Robin has this chaos shard that was part of one of the ancients that he's carried along, and he may or may not have had a dream or a premonition and then used the wish to get his own ends met in information, and that's why now he is aligned against this other shard bearer to fight to the death under the watchful eye of the merchant prince of death and assassins in the city of Varen. So they're in the hold of this nondescript vessel in the harbor, seated across from each other at a table as this merchant prince is talking about the terms of the duel. So
yeah, it was one of those fun sessions where we didn't really fight at all, right? It was all problem solving and figuring out where to go and talking to people, and yeah, I like being interspersed with, sometimes we're doing a bunch of combat and sometimes we're doing, problem solving and political games and things like that. So yeah, it was good. I liked it a lot.
you know what I won't do in that campaign to you guys ever?
What's that?
I won't take your character classes away and say you can't use them.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. So D&D is a fun session.
It was.
I think we also played some Zombicide before Adepticon,
Yep.
kind of prep. Black Plague, strong-armed our way through the scenario that Josh has run for years now. I mean, that's the
Yep. It's the OG one.
yeah,
Mhm.
with the Hearst Arts molds and everything. So
Those heavy tiles, yeah,
Yeah.
pre 3D printing.
Yeah. Yeah. The olden age, right?
Yeah,
Around that.
yeah,
But there's something about them. It's a cool. They have some nostalgia to them. But
yeah. When I was,
that-
I forget who I was telling, but they were like, "Oh, did you 3D print this?" And I'm like, "Oh no, pick this up." And they're
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, it's heavy." I'm like, "Yeah, this was a while ago. This is
Yeah.
7-8 years ago or something." Yeah.
Here's a giant plaster brick.
Right? Yeah.
yeah,
And they're
because
like, "What does this
they're
mean?"
like the dental plaster, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they're
exactly.
tough. Yeah, they're really tough and as
Yeah.
unit. So yeah, I mean for a little bit we just wanted, because we'll talk about what we did at Adepticon on the first night there, which was to run some Zombicide, but we wanted to
Brush up a little bit.
brush up a little bit since he hadn't run an event in a little bit, and especially Zombicide for that. And John and I had used Midwinter as our warm up a few months earlier, so it was good to get that out and to make sure that we were in my constant like, what do we all need to bring? As I was putting together all that packing
Yeah.
stuff, it was a good to like sort through and make sure we had what we had to have, because again, and I don't want to foreshadow hobby, but there was some hobbying that was done to make sure that we had enough Zombicide
hey.
stuffs to do it good. So
Unless you've got something played that's not in notes, Troy, I really think from the time we last recorded, everything else was Adepticon weekend for me. So
yeah, because I did not do any gaming over my second vacation after my vacation to recover from Adepticon. I did a lot of water parks and outdoor stuff, but I did not do. I couldn't get Sarah to open up. We didn't even crack any Pokemon or anything. I don't think so.
oh wow. I had a meetup post Adepticon with Ben, a Pokemon meetup. I brought Landon out. We met Ben at Oscars because Landon had music lessons out in Waukesha. So met up and Ben traded him a Rayquaza, like a legendary, for some meaningless creature, and Landon was stoked to see Ben's. He spent like probably the hour just flipping through Ben's Pokédex on his phone, looking at all this stuff, talking Pokemon. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
We're telling the story in reverse. Ben, who was up here for Adepticon, then stayed out the following week, wanted to visit some of our family here, but then actually his daughter was coming into Chicago to play volleyball over Easter. And so he just stayed those 4 days and went to Chicago on Thursday. So, and it sounds like, he was running around. You saw him more than I did. Well, I saw him on Sunday, but you saw him more than I did because I was up north and he was here staying in my house.
Yeah.
For that. So.
Yeah, we threw a huge party. Hopefully he cleaned up all right.
A little bit, but there's still crumbs everywhere.
Yeah, we had like 30 people over and went through 5 or 6 kegs. Josh bought us beer.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of the hobby that needed to get done as a lead into Adepticon, let's go right to hobby. I'll kick it off because I've actually had a very busy month of hobby, which is a rarity for me these days. But Troy gave me a 3D printed train about a week before Adepticon and said, "Here's a gift, now paint it." So I assembled and painted the Playin and Slayin Express. Maybe I'm sure we can get I don't have it nearby handy, but a photo
throw
up
some photos in here.
Yeah. And then I painted the rest of the heroes. So undead or alive, we're doing multiple varieties of Zombicide. I had the 4 heroes that Bryce had painted, so I painted the other 10 just to have a fully painted set of the heroes to go with my fully painted zombies and the train and everything. So I did all that before Adepticon, and then I painted about a dozen more Black Plague zombies because I think the one set that you guys had was being used for one game.
Yeah.
And my set was only partway done, so we tried to not have too many unpainted zombies, but likely some box zombies were harmed in the filming of the Black Plague scenario.
It wasn't too many, and they actually thought it was really funny when the box zombies came out. So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, somehow we started calling them the unpainted ones box zombies because
Yeah.
we would go to the box to pull them out. That's a good
So I painted like a dozen of those, and then post Adepticon, I assembled this starter box, all the minis for Shatterpoint. So it's like kind of 2 full squads, so about 20 models of Shatterpoint, and then Obi-Wan and some clone troopers, another box. So I'm putting together the Shatterpoint stuff that I've got. And I started looking at Conquest models to start assembling those. So I'm doing a lot of assembly, a lot of plastic glue. But I cleaned up like my hobby desk, put all the paints back away that I had used for everything leading up to kind of Adepticon, and then started fresh. And now it's just got all my, I wonder if I can tilt my body out of the way and show my hobby desk bright light. But
Whoa, that
yeah,
looks nice.
all just the minis. So I broke Obi-Wan's lightsaber though, which has me sad. So I also spent time researching to find the smallest acrylic rods that I could find. And Noble Knight carries some Green Stuff World 1.6 millimeter acrylic rods. So I got a fluorescent blue pack of like 5 rods that I think I can sand down and use. I'm waiting for them to arrive, but I'm going to make Obi-Wan's blue lightsaber using a fluorescent blue acrylic rod. So
nice.
And if it fits, then I might look into buying other colored acrylic rods for other lightsabers.
Very cool.
And then airbrush. I bought a bunch of accessories that I needed. I dug out the compressor that I have, got my airbrush stuff out. So hopefully this weekend or maybe next weekend, I'm going to set that up and start doing some zenithal priming of all the Shatterpoint stuff. So I've been a busy little hobbyist for the last handful of weeks. How about you guys, Troy, other than Space Hulk prep?
That was a lot of the hobby. Yeah, that is a lot of it. But I did do, so what ended up being though, as much as I tried was for I'm going to have everything done ahead of time. Never happens. I did spend we left on Tuesday. So I spent the Monday night until I have like 1:30 painting up the Zombicide Invader heroes that we needed for the second Zombicide game. So because I had done kind of quick and dirty job on the aliens for that game and the terrain and getting that. And I finally had like, all right, we have to have painted heroes for this. And it was always like, oh, I always have one more day. And then you get to that last weekend and there's not one more day. Right. And so that was my last of the last hurrah. But actually they came out, that was fun. And they actually came out pretty good. So that was good. And then before that, and most of my hobby, and I think I talked about, because I had it in different stages over, but it was really getting the 30 new and really 31. I did 31 because there was 6 salamanders that I painted. I assembled probably half of those. John helped me assemble the other half. But getting those built, painted to some kind of a tabletop standard, and I think they came out pretty good. At least people thought so. I think for sitting on the table, they ended up good enough. But I tried all kinds of different. It was fun because each squad almost had a kind of a different speed paint technique depending on what I was going for and what the chapters were. And I saved the Imperial Fist, the yellow ones. I saved those guys for last. I don't know, because I was a little bit scared about how going at the yellow, but
did you use the Imperial Fist?
I did use Imperial Fist. I think I airbrushed Imperial Fist over a really kind of a heavy Zenithal.
Okay.
And so it really came out pretty good. Yeah. I did the same thing I did that through airbrush, and then the Dark Angel, the Deathwing ones, the same thing, kind of a really heavy Zenithal from kind of a white really to their feet are pretty dark. That I did brush of, I think it's Skeleton Horde.
Horde. Yeah.
Yeah. Just laying that with brush over top of of that, and they came out pretty good. Again, just a lot of like YouTube, like looking at different. I would usually for each thing I'd look at like 3 different YouTube videos of how people kind of did it, and then I would kind of pick the pieces out of that I felt like would look good and were within kind of my time and skill range, and rock and roll and do that, and do that. So, and then I also ended up with, I didn't do it on purpose, but I actually ended up with green, red, blue, you could call it Deathwing, kind of white, Black Templar, black, and yellow. So I didn't mean for everything that, like, I hit like all these, they're not primary, but like all the basic, right? You could definitely tell the different squads apart. They were definitely all distinct different colors. And it was just funny as I kept doing them, all of a sudden I realized, oh, look, now I have a red one, I have a blue one, now I'm doing a black one, now I'm doing a white one. It was funny when they all ended up. So that was it. That was pretty much it. And then and we'll talk about, I mean, at some point I kind of drew a line in the sand about, I still have a lot of Gene Stealers and Tyranids I could have painted, but we basically ended up using the old already painted version Gene Stealers and Tyranids, just because that's where I ran out of time. But next year will be all new Tyranids. So, and some more paint on the terrain. That's where we pulled back to, is we got, everything was basic on the terrain, but there's always the wish list. If we had unlimited time, we could have kept going, but it was good for the first one. And we'll talk about how things went on there. But I think that was all my hobby. I am still in hobby recovery. Unlike you, Ty, you have a nice, clean, all your paints put away. I still have, I think I put a picture of my hobby desk as it got to the end, because basically I end up never putting paints away. I just keep adding paints to my mobile hobby desk. And then basically I only have room for like, and right now I bet you there are 50. There might be more than 50 on the between all kinds of different paints and washes and everything else. And I need to go through and reorganize those all, and so I can put my new Adepticon hobby mat onto my hobby space.
Yeah, I gotta prime mine, because you gotta, the Artis Opus one, you gotta paint before you use it.
Yep, I got that. No, it's like a rubber, the big rubber one. I got the big like underlying cutting mat rubber one. No, they'll go under that, and then then my Artis Opus one will go back on top of that. So,
Coop, what about you?
I had a bunch of work stuff leading up to Adepticon, so I got like no hobby done prior. But then once I got back, I was really excited about getting Iceman, and I had a few other kits like that I was interested in building. So I got Iceman, Kitty Pryde, Rogue, and Gambit all assembled in the week after Adepticon. So now I'm probably gonna, like you, I'm probably gonna Zenithal them this weekend and maybe start tackling those. So
yeah, it's gonna be the post Adepticon year of painting what I want, model by model, and not painting any armies. All right. Any kickstarting? Bryce has been the busy bee for Kickstarter. It feels like he's backing stuff every day. But
the only thing I did was there was the war scenery 3D STL scenery kit. What's ridiculous that you go in for like $15-$30 and you get more models than I'm ever gonna print. And if I decide to go through, the hardest part now is like when I want to print something, going through all the files I have to find what I want and remember. It's like you kind of remember like, oh yeah, somebody did a really cool crane or something, and I got to go try and find that. But yeah, that's the only thing I did. So,
is there a good search engine for your STL collection?
I haven't found one.
Like, can you set tags or something on your STL?
I could if I was organized. I could. I try and I do have like one directory, and then I do try and create like a directory structure so I can
wonder
kind of
if-
remember
I
in
wonder
there.
if
But
there's an AI chatbot that could tag your STL files based on image recognition and then reference it in a search.
That'd be cool.
If I was smart, I would make that.
Mhm.
And I'd market it to everyone that uses Thingiverse or
Mhm.
all the other sites.
Well, and a lot of those sites already have, like, the STLs often have some sort of tags, right? Like fantasy or castles or cranes or whatever construction site, like stuff like that. If you could like import those when you download them
Right.
into
And have
whatever
your
tool,
own
right?
search. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But
All right, we'll build that. We got it.
Yeah. We'll put
Cool.
some plans together.
Sounds good.
Well, let's just get this out of the way. Before we move into the library, I want to share some thoughts. We won't talk at length. Maybe this could be episode 79, where we actually revisit this when the wound's not so fresh.
Hmm.
But today, Games Workshop announced, as their lead up to AOS 4th edition, that they were going to be removing a significant amount of models from a handful of lines. One happened to be Stormcast, which is super bloated. Games Workshop's fault, not the consumer. And likely having trouble selling it since they pushed it so hard with starter boxes. But they're getting rid of most of all but one of my models in my whole army of 3,000 plus points and others. So people are sad. It stinks as a player to have that happen. Company makes company decisions, whatever. I couldn't get my prepared letter approved by the Playin and Slayin BoD or Goonhammer attorneys. Evidently, there were some concerns about how strongly worded my language may have been. Perhaps some threats were made. I don't really remember writing it. It was just kind of in the moment. But we're going to see if we can get a redacted version through legal to share on our next episode. But
yeah, and there'll be a heavy disclaimer: the views of Ty do not represent the views of Playin and Slayin,
Nor Goonhammer.
Basement of Death, or the Goonhammer radio network.
Media Network, yeah. Sometimes it's good to have oversight before you just put things out there into content. But in this case, I really feel like I'm being held back by our legal department, and there needs to be freedom of speech and thought and word and action all the time. So let's talk about library, BoD Library. What have we been reading? Definitely not the Callus and Toll novel that I thought about buying. But what have we been reading?
Cool. I'll kick things off. I'm still on Hunger of the Gods, the second book of what is the series called, Ty? I don't remember what the series is called. It's John Wynn, right?
Is it Bloodsworn
Or John
Trilogy?
Gwynn.
Bloodsworn Trilogy.
Bloodsworn
right?
Trilogy. Yeah, John Gwynn. So I get the G in there. John Gwynn. Second book. Really enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, which means I'm kind of going the slow, piecemealing it, a couple chapters a day as I do dishes or drive around or whatever else. But the plot is really kind of kicking up in the second one. I think a bunch of people in here read it, but enjoying that one. The other one is over. Whoa, there we go. There behind me. If I lean, I gotta lean this way. There we go. The Art of the Horus Heresy. I got a hold of this book, which was hard to get through because Black Library, again, it's sold out in a couple of seconds. But it is 200 pages of the 200 pages of mostly Neil Roberts and all the covers he did for the 50 some books plus all the other stuff he did for the Horus Heresy things. And there's a little bit of narrative in there. I cracked it open and it being at the end of the Horus. I talked a little bit about being at the end of the Horus Heresy and reading it all. It's just, and having this now to go through and you can kind of relive because it's got all the covers that he went through and a lot of times, the covers were either, depending if you're, either on a paperback or whatever, and to see them on a full 2-page spread in that book. I'm really glad that I because you had to go through a couple hoops to get it, and I'm really glad I did, because it's a nice kind of artifact. It's really an artifact of that journey, and to be able to open it up, and there's some there's mostly pictures, but there's some words from Neil Roberts in there. There's also some, he talks, and maybe every 10 or so, he kind of does just talks about that painting and what he did and what he was thinking of and some of that. So some really cool. And if you're into art at all, and Neil Roberts is kind of some ways, right, he is the vision of Games Workshop, that beyond kind of the early artists that were, you had some of the, I'm going to get them, Adrian Adrian Smith and John, I don't have John Blanche, thank you. I'm like, why can't I get the last names right? Yeah, John Blanche. You think of kind of the early, right, Rogue Trader kind of style things, and I think now modern 40K, you really think of Neil Roberts as that. So just big plug for that. And then finally just started the 3 Body Problem on Netflix. Only I think only a couple episodes in. Interesting to see. It's been, I'm trying to think, I read that book probably almost 6 or 7 years ago now, getting to be and so interesting to see. I remember a lot of some of the big points in there, but not a lot of the details. But interesting to see how they're, how they've made it. Always how you make some changes to change the media. I actually think they have an opportunity to make, because I think the story is super interesting, and they had something there. I was not a huge fan of the book. I think again, you have a translation there. It was originally Chinese.
I was going to say, I always wonder how much of it is the translation, because I found the book a little clunky. At parts, it just doesn't flow real well.
Yeah, and I struggled with it as an audiobook, because I think they also had a kind of a lukewarm narrator on top of some clunky writing, and there were some struggles to help me get through this, because I want to know what happens, but the journey was a little bit of a thing. But then so I'm actually excited to kind of revisit that and kind of get it in a different form, because I think they could actually kind of, one of these things where they possibly could kind of outstrip the book in terms of being able to be a little bit more adaptable and consumable. So, but it's an interest. I mean, that story is not for the faint of heart either.
No,
you got to have your brain. Don't be distracted, because you got to pay attention, and you got to
No, I started it in a less than focused night. It was pretty late. I was I was looking for something, and I got about 15-20 minutes in, and I was like, I need the I can't. Yeah. I wasn't tracking. I was like, right. I'm not in the right setting or mind space for this. I'm gonna wait rather than force it, because it was.
It is not a put on in the background.
Heavy. Yeah.
Oh, and it does too. Yeah, I almost tried that with when I had other people in the room. Like, oh no, this is something I need to watch by myself.
Yeah.
So that's me.
I've been reading Changing All Stars. I've just heard so many people say it's such a good book, so I'm almost done. I think I have maybe a quarter of the way to go. It's super good. I'm really enjoying it. And then Ted Lasso. I loved the first 2 seasons, and then I lost my access to Apple TV. And I bought a new phone, and they said, "Oh, hey, you can have 3 months free." And I was like, "Okay, I'll watch Ted Lasso." So, yep. I've been, I think I'm 2 or 3 episodes in. So, yeah, it's just a fun show, right? It's good.
It's good. Yeah, but only people with new iPhones watch it.
Right? Yeah.
Well, I pay for Apple Plus because I refuse to pay $6 a month for other streaming services from game companies. But I pay for Apple Plus, so I'll add it to the list to watch.
Awesome.
So I've been doing a bit of reading. I listened to Hidden Potential by Adam Grant, which is very interesting stuff as far as how people learn and lead, and what people do to get better, to truly master stuff. It's interesting, and you hear snippets on the audiobook from the people that he talks about, either clips of interviews or like coaches and different things. So that was a good one. Had me, interestingly enough, it had me thinking about how to get youth baseball players to like be at their best. So I coached my son's team, and like I applied a lot of it to that versus like workplace, and because it's going to take a lot more than me listening to Hidden Potential to change my culture at work. Then I read, so I went to the bookstore maybe last week with Nicole, and I bought a couple books. One of them, so Jordan Harper is the author. He writes like modern crime stories, but he does a lot of television, like show running and stuff. So Ed Brubaker has a comic book called Criminal that is being adapted for television. One of the streamers picked it up, and Jordan Harper is attached to it. I hadn't heard of Jordan Harper before that, but then I saw, he's done some work on shows that I've liked. He's an author. I got his debut novel called She Rides Shotgun. I read it in a day and a half, 300 pages, but just tore through it. A guy gets out of prison, and he has a hit that is put on him by kind of like the Aryan Brotherhood, like prison gang, but it's put on his ex-girlfriend and his like 11 or 12-year-old daughter too. So he shows up and picks up his daughter from school, and then they're on the run, and it's kind of a story of what he does to keep her safe. So, and the girl is kind of the main character, but also like side character to him. So really good novel, really quick. He writes just really like good action, good dialogue. So if you like crime stories at all, kind of in that Chuck Hogan-esque vibe, Jordan Harper, she rides shotgun. Very good. I'm revisiting Good Omens. So on Audible, I'd started that years ago and kind of never got through it. So I was about halfway through it, and now I'm listening to the last half and really enjoying it. So that's been my commute Audible listen.
The classic.
I'm reading
the classic.
I'm reading Harrow, the second book in the Gideon, Harrow, Nona, so that whole series. And then I went to Tuesday. I was at the library.
Ty, can I bring you back? I just want to hear your thoughts on Harrow, because the second book is very different than the first. one.
Incredibly. So much so I had to go back and review notes on the ending of the first one to try to figure out,
because you're like, where the hell am I? Right? Yes.
Why we're there. Yeah.
Okay, just check in. That I'm not the only one. I enjoyed it immensely, but I love, again, that's part of the enjoyment is how she made. Yeah, because you kind of go in like, oh, I'm ready to kind of pick up where we left off, and you're like, oh no, where? Yeah, you're lost for like the first third or half of that book. Yeah,
you're kind of adrift, and I had, because it had been probably a year since I read Gideon, and I was like, wait a second, what? And then. But it's very good. Harrow's a really cool character. It's cool though how Tamsin Muir, the author, she really like the viewpoint shifts novel to novel are so drastic. It's like reading it is a different book, obviously, but a lot of times a series you get the voice of the author. Her voice is so centered in the character that it changes the experience reading the books, which is really cool.
Cool. Yeah. Wait for book 3.
Yeah, Nona.
Yep.
Yeah. And then so I went to the library to vote Tuesday. It was our spring like primaries and everything. My polling place is at the Greenfield Public Library. So I went in there and I'm like, you know what? I haven't renewed my library card in a while. So I did that. And then I was browsing around. I tried to find a couple books that were on my like to read list that weren't in. And I was browsing. I saw Scalzi's Kaiju Preservation Society on the shelf. So I picked that up and I started. I'm about 60, 70 pages in and enjoying that. It's an interesting take on, a guy loses his job. He's kind of adrift. Friend says, hey, I work for this NGO that could use help, like moving stuff, come with. And then he ends up in this alternate dimension Earth that actually has like huge monsters, kaiju on it. So pretty interesting, pretty cool story. And I like Scalzi's kind of humor and how he writes. So
yeah, I enjoy. I just burned myself out on his from him a little bit or whatever, because I read it, like I was reading his stuff a lot in the, I don't know, whatever 5-6 years ago, and I felt I just kind of, he kind of always has the same voice in almost all his books.
Yeah.
And so I think I just got, again, not, I'm at some point I made, because they are a great palate cleanser. They always have that kind of semi-sweet, funny, and then funny with, he always weaves in a few good touching parts. And like, he does a good job at telling his story. I would say he's not the world's best writer, but he does a really good job at telling a really good, enjoyable story.
Yeah. And I've really enjoyed. So I listened to Red Shirts and Starter Villain on Audible, and Will Wheaton narrates both, and they're really good experiences. This one I'm reading and enjoying it.
Yeah.
But it is kind of, I'm reading it and I hear Will Wheaton in my head.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys ever get that when you're reading a book. Then watching, so Guy Ritchie, I'm a big fan of his stuff, his films. He did a TV series on Netflix called The Gentleman. Same title as a movie he did with Matthew McConaughey called The Gentleman. But it's kind of like drug dealers in England, with some crazy characters, and just how Guy Ritchie kind of his style. It's just, he had free reign with this project, and it's really cool to see. Definitely, if you like any of his stuff, I'd watch the show. It's an interesting story. So that's a lot, I feel like I've been reading and watching, but it's all been enjoyable. I think this would be a good time to pause, get a word from our sponsors and freshen up, and then come back, and we're going to dive into Adepticon 2024. Number, 23? I don't know. Adepticon
20
it's
years.
Hard because
20?
they missed a couple. So it's
a lot of Adepticons, but this year's Adepticon, we were there. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Adepticon 2024. I feel like this could be like election watch 2024. Adepticon primary.
I need to and then run some kind of a music beat, right? Or just the music.
I've got my pen, and I sit here and I go, Adepticon 2024 live.
I got a pen too. Josh, where's your pen? We're doing this is hardcore reporting that we're doing.
Yes. You have to have a pen to maintain journalistic integrity. All right. Tuesday for some of us. Tuesday. We arrive in Schaumburg, Illinois, between the 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. Get set up, unload cars and trucks, mentally prepare for the sprint that is Adepticon. Any travel arrival news, or should we just get to the fun on Wednesday night?
The only thing I will share, and I shared it with a bunch of people, is I did have a moment of slight crisis and worry where I was about to call Josh, because I did not think I could get one of my nagging concerns the whole time was that, is this all going to fit in my Subaru Ascent? And at about 2:30 on Tuesday, as I was playing live, whatever it is in real life, Tetris, with my car, I'm like, might be time to call Josh and see if I can drive over. But then I'm like, my car's full of stuff, and so now I gotta either I don't know. It was not unpack it to what I was gonna take over to. So but luckily I realized I had not pushed my 85 tubs between the 6 inches up to the back of the front seat. I had left a little space there, and so I'm like, all right, let's see what happens if we do this. And that got me enough to maybe to just get John, and then I'm like, John, you better only be bringing like underwear, because you cannot bring any luggage. We're not bringing water. We're not bringing. There's nothing extra can come. Always like John, and then I gave John like a 1.5 cubic feet to put his duffel bag stuffed in, and that was about it. So
I'm proud that you were able to make the Subaru work when
I could not see it all behind me, of course, but
Yeah.
that's all right. The car drives itself. So
yeah, good thing you had side mirrors and driver assist. Wednesday night, Geek Nation Tours welcome dinner. So Terrace Cassidy, the man, the myth, the legend, tour host extraordinaire, invited the Basement of Death crew to host some gaming events for his group. So we were able to join them for dinner in one of the ballrooms at the Renaissance, and eat some good food, hang out, meet some new folks. Always fun to see who's on the trip. People, it's always great too. Some of the same folks there year after year after year, and then set up some Zombicide games. So, Troy, I don't know. I think last year, Space Hulk, there was some discussion about maybe do something different. You had the bright idea to do some of our spiced up Zombicide games. So we offered like a menu of Zombicide experiences.
yeah, it was good. Yeah, again, Terrace and I were talking after we had done last year our kind of here's our Space Hulk Light version, and then we had been doing for a couple of years, and at Adepticon, Josh, we had run some Zombicide, and we had run some Zombicide Invader, and so we have some of the cool stuff. And so I'm like, hey, by the way, we have some of these cool Zombicide things, and we could probably scale that up to do that. And yeah, I appreciate your guys' help, because I was kind of like, in order to do as we were thinking through the logistics, that's the trick. Is it's one thing to run a game at a convention for 6 to 8 people. It's another thing to plan an evening for 30-ish people, 20 to 30 people, and have enough games and cool experiences for them all at the same time, right? That's it requires a little bit different logistics, and like we were planning, and all the little bit of hobby we needed to do to get 5 different games of Zombicide, and they were all really cool games. I think it was funny as we were deciding like who was going to run what. Like I was even torn, like, oh, these are all really cool. Like I want to see Ty's train, Undead or Alive train game, and do I want to do I ended up running the Hagglethorn Hollow terrain Zombicide or Black Plague on the Hagglethorn Hollow train, which I'd done before, and then John and Ben both ran the Zombicide Invader games, the 3D games of that, and then Josh ran his Black Plague one. But as we were deciding, I'm like, oh, I really want to run the new Zombicide Invader too, because that's fun and things like that. So it was. I hope people it sounded like people had some fun. I talked a little bit to Terrace afterwards, so it sounded like we gave, but yeah, and I thought it was kind of cool that we gave them a definite smorgasbord of the kind of the different Zombicide games, and our cool take on them. So Simon can send us any kind of support, just a letter of thanks, whatever they want,
something,
a sticker, yeah, just a handshake, whatever they
Careful, guys. Last time we asked the company for support in running massive events for their specialist games, they came and did us dirty.
But yeah, that was
this will get
like
old.
You said,
eventually I'll stop. I promise. I won't do this the whole entire night every time I get a chance.
This could be multi-episodes. It could, because I don't put it past GW that they might not do something by the next time we record to stoke the fires, keep the fires burning. So
yeah, like ban 3D printed train for Space Hulk games.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, again, everything. I'll second the stuff you said, Ty, around it. It's fun to do. Again, Terrace is an amazing guy. been great to know him for the past 10 plus years and be able to do something with him now for the last couple of years has been great. And and you're getting to be, like you said, there's some people who come to his tour, the Adepticon tour, over and over. And so we're actually getting to know some of those people, and even the new people every year. It's a really cool event, and I'm glad we get to do it.
And they're all folks that like want to be there, right? They want a game and they want to have fun, and it really shows. Like they're a community, they're a kind of their own small community within the larger Adepticon community. It's cool to hang out with them.
Then, do we want to just get to the main event, Troy?
We just want to
or
talk.
Do we want to go through what? Should Josh and I talk about what events and things classes we did, and then you can talk about Space Hulk? What do you want to do?
Well, let's do that. We'll build to it. We'll build up to it. So we listeners stayed tuned in here.
Great. So I only registered for 2 events. One was the AOS narrative, the Gibbering Dome. So Danner and I registered for that. I think we had 8 players. It was a really small event, but played 3 games on Thursday. Was always fun about narrative stuff is you're not really playing like AOS. It's like AOS light. You're playing the table, the scenario with like the armies and the rules for your units, but like not the battle tactics, the grand strategies, all the minutia that tends to slow the game down. So it's just throwing 1,000 points around the table, creating a story. So round 1, I played a guy named Kevin from, I think he described it as 3 hours north of Ontario. So I don't know exactly where that gets you in Canada, but 3 hours north of Toronto. I think
it's kind of the middle of nowhere. Yeah, right. That's, I would say, not a lot of stuff around there. Snow, trees.
It was a good first game. I mean, it was a tight game. He wasn't like super into it or like animated. It's just kind of like he sat down, I think, the whole time. So it's like one of those where you're trying to build a little excitement, but you're not getting it. But he was a nice enough guy. We had a good game. It was tight. Then round 2, I went so Paul Wagner was the ringer. It originally had been his event. He's a Madison guy. One of the other guys that he podcasts with on like one of the Warcry or narrative, the Path to Story podcast, I think that he does with Will. Will ran it, and Paul was ringing because they had an uneven, I think we had 9 guys. So I said, Paul, I know this might be poor form to challenge the ringer, but I just want to play you. We've never had a chance. So Paul Wagner and I played and kind of created a different side scenario for like our game, like a story. The messenger, like he wanted to get because it had a secret location of this pirate captain that leads his fleet. And I said, he has information about my demon prince that the demon prince doesn't want to get out. He has like his true name. And then whoever could accomplish the objective learned the secret from the opponent. So he learned that Heldor Gorax, his surname was not actually Gorax. But since none of you won, you don't get to learn what Heldor Gorax's surname actually was. And then we had, at the beginning of the event, we challenged somebody in the group to be our adversary, kind of like our mortal enemy. So I saw that Adon was playing in the event. So I said, Adon, we're going to be rivals. Here's, what's going on. So we locked in a game 3 like before it started, and then played him, and it was super fun. He's such an engaging guy. He's just nice. It was like telling the story, rolling dice. He had the 3 of the new Iron Jaws big pigs that were trucking around the table, and we said they were kind of Tokyo drifting around as they would come in. But had a good conversation, good hangout with him, and talked about Space Hulk during the game. But that was it. It was a day of really lighthearted Warhammer. I wasn't like exhausted by the games. I wasn't, 1,000 points, 2-hour games, narrative style play. I was like, okay, this is the sweet spot for like an event. I didn't feel the brain drain or the, any fatigue. I was like, this was super easy and chill. So
nice.
So, Ty, can you talk about how you and Danner actually got an army on the table?
Yeah. So I had made a list and I included 2 models that I didn't have in it. And I requested my friend Josh to lend me models. And I talked to him about 4 days in advance of Adepticon. And the day before, when I was packing up, I even said, hey, here's a reminder to bring those Chaos Spawn. I got the thumbs up. Yeah, no problem. I've got the box next to all my stuff. Good to go. Wednesday night at 11:30, we get back to the hotel room after some drinking and hanging out after the Geek Nation dinner and everything. 11:30, Josh goes, hey, those Chaos Spawn are at home.
With what, Josh?
So I had brought a bunch of stuff to paint, like, because I wanted to paint under the table this year, right? Or under the stairs this year, right? And I left everything in this box with the Chaos Spawn and my badge. It was all sitting. And when I got home, my badge and the box of stuff and like paints and stuff, like
Were
everything I
there 2
wanted to
Chaos
bring.
Spawn?
Yep, they were in there.
Good.
Yep, everything was all ready to go with my badge on top of it.
So like it's almost midnight, Troy, and Josh shares this with Matt and I, and the thought process was, well, it's a 3-hour round trip back to Waukesha. We're like, no. I'm like, I'll play 140 points down. It's a narrative thing. Who cares? Like, and then Matt, I think, or Josh, one of them said, let's go to the Bits guy and buy Chaos Spawn and get them painted. So we drove back over to the Renaissance because we were staying at the Hyatt. Went to the Bits guy, found one mostly painted and one totally unpainted Chaos Spawn, and then spent the next 3 hours in the hobby area with James Wapple coming over a few times, which was actually a really cool experience. Painting the Chaos Spawn, which culminated with the Dirty Down, the Goblin Hut, the guy that sells Dirty Down Rust. He had this weird resin like blood effect that Matt was huge on using, but he swore we had to use it outside because how it smelled. So we went outside and it was too cold, so we were in the heated entryway to the Renaissance, like dripping this blood effect on, and it smelled awful. Like, a few brain cells were lost. But around 3 a.m. went to bed knowing I had to get up for a 10 o'clock tournament, and I would have my 2 fully painted Chaos Spawn.
There we go.
So we'll get
That's
some
what
pictures.
Adepticon's about. Those are the stories that make up Adepticon right there. That's the...
It was awesome.
Yeah, and I believe the whole time I was saying I'm so tired, I just want to go to bed. Mm-hmm. And nobody agreed that we could go to bed until
Danner and I were like, we just
done.
kept looking at Ty going, we just kept painting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I took you on a tangent there,
no,
Ty, but I knew that there was a story there that needed to be told. So
yeah,
for sure.
And then the only other event that I did outside of Space Hulk, which we'll talk about, was an Airbrush 101 class with Aaron Lovejoy. So Aaron is pretty prolific on like Instagram. I think he does Miniature Monthly, like the magazine and stuff. But it was really like how he sets up, what he does, his mixes that he uses, how he mixes paint, how he cleans his airbrush. So like part of what I did when I got back is I went and bought, a 90% isopropyl alcohol, because he mixes just 10% isopropyl with 90% water. And that's what he uses to clean between colors, and what he uses to thin his paints. He just uses that mixture. He doesn't do any flow improver. He doesn't add any, like other product. He just uses the isopropyl water mix. And like learn some cool tips. Like he shoots his airbrush way higher PSI. Like most people generally operate around 20, 25. He's like, I blow it out. Like he's like, I go to 80 if I could. He had the ones in the room set at 40, so we could all get used to like what that does. And talked about the importance of like these, he calls them little 10% sprays, where you just barely hit the trigger and you get a tiny little dot out about how you can do so much more with that lighter touch. And he also airbrushes way further back. He's probably 6 to 8 inches off the model, whereas a lot of airbrush guys will be, like here, like in close. He's further back, which is really interesting and unique. But then they sent a PDF out afterwards with kind of what he talked about, and it was I think he was really good instructor. We had a chance to kind of Zenithal prime like a little ogre model from like Reaper Minis. He talked about like how he thinks about the angles and light and stuff. It felt, and I hate saying this even, but it felt like a $30 to $40 class for the 2 hours, not like the $70 or whatever it was. But I've done stupider things for $70.
Yeah.
So, and Josh took the time slot right before me, so he was like 1 to 3, I was like 4 to 6.
Yeah.
But it's like 20 guys in the room learning about airbrushing with Aaron Lovejoy. So I think that, and then we used the board game library this year. We played a game from there. But Josh, I'll let you, any classes and events before we kind of talk about the BoD steak dinner.
Yeah. The 3 events that I signed up for were the Airbrush 101 with Aaron Lovejoy. I thought it was pretty good. Same as you. I thought it was maybe a tad expensive for really what it was, but it was good. I liked it, and he had a lot of really good tips, kind of like all the stuff that you talked about. So it's interesting to hear people's different perspectives, right, and kind of take little pieces from everybody and try to make them your own, right? So my other event was a small scale airbrush techniques, and it was kind of more geared towards like armor, so like planes and tanks and vehicles and things with kind of more flat armor or even curved armor, where it's like more of a flat space, and instead of just covering it in a color, trying to give it some texture, right, or give it some gradient. So he was kind of talking about different ways to give it different gradients and things, and I think I learned a lot from that class about covering flat space with making color interesting instead of just being one uniform
Flat,
thing.
yeah.
And for what it's worth, that was a $15 class. So I feel like I got a lot out of that. And they both, it was funny, Aaron Lovejoy and it was Chris Bergeron, Bergeron. I didn't know either of these guys previously, but I looked them both up afterwards, and they're both really great painters. So but Chris and Aaron both do things totally different, right? Chris kind of more 20 psi, Aaron 40 plus psi. One of them's using flow improver and using different ways to clean the brush, and Aaron's like just 90% isopropyl alcohol with or 10% 90% water, whatever. And it's like everybody's doing different things, right? And it's interesting to kind of blend those things together. So
because they work, right? They all work, right? And so it's like you find out what works for you, right? And there's no perfect, there's no like one way to do it, like anything else. So
So I'm gonna mess around with definitely PSI. So I usually have been at about 20 psi, and playing around with Aaron's 40 psi, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like there is something to that. So I might bump it up just a little bit and just see how it goes for a little while. And his isopropyl alcohol with water mixture really did work well. So I may just say forget flow improver and forget cleaning supplies. I'm just going to do that. So I have like 2 bottles of that for 3D printing stuff.
And he's like, it lasts forever because you're only using, you take this like this style bottle, you fill it to there with isopropyl alcohol and there to water. Like
exactly. And so I'm excited to kind of use
Did you pick up these too after the fact?
I actually had, so I always have one of those ready to go.
I got the full gray. I went white gray. It was like $25 on Amazon to get
Yep.
all three of the Style and Res primers.
You know, when I open a new one, I order another one, so I always have one ready to go. Because I always end up running out of black. So
Yeah. Although I am not I'm not as big a fan of those as I have trouble with
Dude,
them.
it was so slick using. I don't know if it's the thinner, like
if you thin it, because I think that's where I just run into the problems. Is sometimes if I don't go through them, if they get a little old, sometimes they'll get a little thick, and then I struggle because I don't. I think I'm thinning them enough, and I'm really not. And
the other thing too that Aaron shared, which he never puts the paint directly into the cup. He mixes in a separate cup, gets the texture he wants, tests it with the paintbrush, and then he'll take the paintbrush to put it into the cup versus pouring. Because the pouring, if you have little particles or a little dry from the inside of your paint, it'll come in, and that's often, he said, what clogs up your airbrush more so than like dry tip or something, causing it. But
yeah, I thought that was really interesting too, that he used the paintbrush. He kind of like
scoops
transfers
it
out. Yeah, it's really interesting. So
I do
those techniques.
Yeah, and I do use the cup because again, you go on Amazon, you can buy 200 little cups things, right? And those are nice to when you just have to it's one of those. I'll use the same thing I say at work a lot, is go slow to go fast, right? Like a lot of times just doing that one little extra step, make sure your paint's good before you go to the airbrush, saves you. You're like, oh, and I'm gonna go fat and dump it right in the cup, and then you end up spending twice as much time because you're clogged and not thinned enough and all that craziness. So it's like,
I had a conversation with Gabe after I'd taken the class, and he's like, I used to do a lot more airbrushing, but the time spent, he's like, by the time you clean your airbrush and you get set up and you do what you're going to do, and he's like, it's so much faster just to slop the paint on. He brushes on the Style and Res like primer, and he says by the time he does 5 models, the first one's ready to start putting oil paints on and stuff. So he's like, airbrushing from a priming standpoint may not be worth it, but like, I figure if I'm doing skirmish gaming unit, like I'm not doing batch painting, I'm doing like a model at a time. I want those light values to be set with like a good zenithal, so that's what I want to try it with, like Shatterpoint and MCP is really like preparing the surface to like glaze and make it easier to paint versus just to throw a bunch of speed paint on or contrast paint.
Right.
Yep.
So some hobby seminars. We're up in our hobby game, Josh.
For sure. And then my third event was the Morton's steak dinner.
That was a fun outing. I think we had 8 people, 7 of us gamers, and then our buddy Bill, who Josh and I went to like high school with, and from grade school on up. Troy used to live in the neighborhood, just down the road from you. He's in the Chicago area now with his family, so he came out to meet us at the Renaissance and kind of looked at the gaming hall, and then drove us over to Morton's in his minivan. Ben joined us. We ordered the Troy, an appetizer off the menu, sauteed mushrooms and onion, I believe.
So I was there in spirit.
But Raph and Tom, so a newer member of our Discord, it was his first time at Adepticon. Super cool guy. But to them, our buddy Bill, Danner, Bryce, Josh, myself, and Ben. I think that was the squad. So just sitting back, eating really good food, having some good cocktails, and enjoying each other's company away from the hustle and bustle of an more crowded Adepticon.
Yeah. It seemed like a lot this year.
Like, this was the first year where I felt the crowd, and I can define what I mean by that by like just walking in like traffic and the rooms feeling fuller and louder. Like, not a bad thing, just kind of, as I get older, I think I get more annoyed by more people. So I spent more time annoyed, which is the general, like, you go to Gen Con and you're always annoyed at the number of people. You go to like Gamehole and you're like, this is really cool and chill, but a good number of people. And now Adepticon is somewhere between those two, where it's like feeling the crush a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe we slip into where I noticed it, and I wasn't around a lot of that, was the vendor area. Was typical. Again, a little bit of the Gen Con, like, it's not right anywhere near the size, but it used to be like, hey, there would be slow days in the vendor hall, and the same thing with Adepticon. Like, after the first sometimes it'd be pretty sparse when a lot of the big events are going on. That I didn't. Every time I went, it felt like you were shoulder to shoulder, and the busy booths like Monument and other things were always busy with a line, right? There was no like downtime. And I was watching a little bit of like some of the vendors and things like that, and it's good for them, right? They're like, we were like super busy all the time, and and they're not going to complain about people being busy in their booth. But there was no real downtime. It felt like even in the vendor area compared to years past, where there'd be ups and downs of that time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, heck, let's talk vendor hall. So, some game companies that are usually there, I think Arena Rex and Parabellum had a big setup for Conquest, which I bought the 100 Kingdoms, the All Knights, like Cavalry Army box, and Bryce bought some of the new factions. So I think we're going to give Conquest a try, at least the skirmish level First Blood, and maybe the rank and file game. But Monument Hobbies had the 3 new paint sets. So the Rogue Hobbies, so Louise Sugden's signature series, Flameon Miniatures signature series, and then the Adepticon paint line. So I added all 3 of those to my Pro Acryl collection. I think the only Pro Acryl that I don't have is the metallics at this point in time. And then spent a good amount of time talking to their social media content guy, Christopher. He does all their camera work and recording for all their Twitch streams and different stuff. But had a really awesome conversation with him in the hobby area, and then saw him at the booth. Also, future episode, maybe I think it's Jason, the owner at Monument, but he would be fun to talk to, and Raph has the connection there. So what else was a cool booth? Artist Opus had a really great setup. Byron Ord spent most of the weekend showing people how to do kind of that damp dry brushing method of his that he paints models with those Artist Opus dry brushes. Thursday I went in there for lunch of the narrative, and I picked up the last box of the Goonhammer paintbrush set. It was the last one remaining at noon on Thursday.
Yeah, I grabbed the third to last, and I ran into Ty, and I don't know if it was me or Raph or whoever. We're like, you better get in there if you want one. So,
yeah, and then those 2 booths really was where I spent the most time and money waiting and purchasing. And then the Parabellum booth, I demoed First Blood with Bryce, which is the Conquest skirmish game. Josh kind of hung out as we got the demo, which was very like, demo basic, no real variety, but it's a roll low game, so I'm really good at rolling 1s and 2s usually. So I might pick that game up.
Sweet.
What about you, Josh? Troy, any vendors that you saw of note or stopped by? I saw Snapship Tactics. I didn't buy it, but I saw them there.
Ben swung by
I tried
there
not to
and
spend
said
a lot
hi,
of time at the booth in the back. But they were there.
Yeah, I hit up Monument Hobbies and picked up the Rogue Hobbies set and Artist Opus, obviously, and then kind of wandered a little bit, just freeform shopping. I don't know that I made too many big purchases, but yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, that set looks great.
There it is. Cool.
Yeah, that's what I picked up as well. So beautiful. This is my first nice brush set. I usually just buy junk brushes and then try to make them work. So this is my first like foray into here's a nice brush set. So I'm gonna try to.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, especially it's
Use your brush
amazing what
soap.
a dry brush, their dry brushes do. Like, it feels different. Like, you're able to do things that you can't do with a cheap crummy. Because most of that, right? The mindset was, oh, I use some cheap bad brush for my dry brush, right?
Mhm.
And using these that are explicitly made for that and the different sizes and things. Yeah, it's just, it opens up, lets you do, many more things than you could in the past, really, or easily, a lot more easily than you could in the past. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Sorry, that's bad TV with my back turned.
That's right. I think I did. I grabbed, because I was just grabbing because you did get the Adepticon program that I didn't read until after I got home from Adepticon, because I never had time to read it when I was there. But I was just like to see if there were any remind myself of any vendors that were interesting. So on there, I did. I did go to the booth in the back. It was the typical. It was the Warhammer booth that they usually take all their big events. And they have everything that they do. Sometimes it's interesting in the GW that to find, because sometimes they bring things that only, or they find, somebody finds a box in the warehouse. So like Ben bought a bunch of the Aeronautica stuff that's like dead and out of thing. But guess what? There was a shelf with that had a bunch of stuff there, and Ben's like, oh, I'll grab a couple, I'll grab these. And because I think that he was going to use for something. Otherwise, other people, you could have basically bought those and flipped them on eBay for probably 10 times their price too. But that's always interesting, is sometimes the corner, I always look at the corners of that booth, because that's where they kind of bring the stuff that you can only find at their booth. But then the other one,
they had some Stormcast Sacrosanct boxes there as well, if you were interested. Sorry, go ahead, Troy.
No, and then I did buy. I didn't buy a lot. Again, I didn't have a lot of time in the booth, but the only thing I bought, I think on Sunday, was I bought, not that I needed one, but I bought a mat from, I think it's Gray Matter Games.
Oh yeah, Gray Matter Gaming.
They were out in the hall again. That just showed the growth. Like, besides the vendor area in the Adventure Hall, there were there always had been a few booths that kind of had leaked into the hall, but now like there was a bunch of them that were out in the hallway and things like that. And one of those was Gray Matter, who had some interesting mats. And I'm like, whatever, they were doing some, and I don't have it because it was, they just said, we'll ship it to you. And I'm like, great, because then I don't have to carry it anyway. So,
because you didn't have room in the.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'd slightly more room on the way home, because we'll go through things that we did for Space Hulk, because we might have gave some stuff away that I brought. So,
well, let's stop beating around the bush. So, Troy is the most highly desired event, sells out the quickest, is constantly asked to expand and do more, but the like, just a spotlight event, given full access to the tables in the ballroom that he needs in his quiet back corner, where he can put up his banner and set up shop for the weekend. But the host of the world's largest game of Space Hulk.
Cool. That's a great lead-in time. There are other great events there too, but I appreciate that there are people who enjoy.
It's the only Games Workshop event that I'll ever play in again. Is
it a Games Workshop event? I don't even know. There are some Games Workshop miniatures that show up on the table, but actually that's it. Like, it's kind of funny. It's like that. What's the ship that, if you replace all the parts, eventually, is it still the same ship, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is Space Hulk, but there are really no pieces of Space Hulk left anymore. So it's
But anyways, you set up and you run multiple games. Let's hear about the ticketed events, and then we can talk about our bonus events. As we were running, we had no rest for the weary.
we turned around right away Thursday, spent a little bit of time kind of perusing the hall, and then we got to it and started our setup on Thursday at about lunch, because it was like, I don't know, it's more than me. For me, it's also a little bit of nerves around, especially this, because we have our new setup. But I'm always like, did I pack everything, and did everything? Did we get everything that we needed to there and whatever? So until I get that table set up, there's always a little bit of nerves around is everything going to work out okay on that? So we did that for, I think we got it put together in, I don't know, probably a little under 3 hours, and not in a big rush. And actually, I think this went together. John and I were kind of doing a little bit of retrospective on that, and actually we think the new set went together probably almost easier than the old one. The old one, we had a little bit of, there was always, I don't know, a little bit of duct tape and barbed wire to get some of the things to all play together, and we had a bunch of stuff. And now with all the 3D terrain kind of all clips together, and we made a good plan, and we organized it pretty well. So and not to bury lead, so it was completely new. I think I'd been leading up to that as I 3D printed all new terrain on the 12x6, so the 6 different maps that went there. And as people were asking me, I was a little like ambitious. Like we had that the other set had grown from, I think first year I did it was 2012. So that I had used it for about 10 years, and it had kind of grown and changed, and over 10 years and then in 1 year, I'm like, oh no, let's just throw it all out and start all over. And as I say that now, I'm like, why would I ever think that that's a good idea? But it turned out really well. So we got that. And then Thursday we had our first game at 4. I think we gave ourselves time. We ran it at 4:00 was the first one. We had and I think we actually had 5 out of 6. We had actually a no-show, believe it or not.
What?
And then again, I always tell people, if you really want to play, come and stand there by the wait list, because sometimes, again, I think that might have been the only one for the weekend that we didn't fill out. But our friend Dan Bears from Cubic Shenanigans was in the neighborhood, and so I'm like, Dan, jump in.
Nice.
and so he kind of took the spot, the last spot there. So it was good to get him in that game there to do that. So, and then that was always the first run. Again, we had run with you guys as the Planet play test, but until you kind of get it, do it live, you're always wondering how things are going to run. And it turned out pretty well around that. So, and then on Thursday evening, we did our first, we always call them kind of our family and friends invite only events, and this year we ran a couple of those because there was a lot of demand from both internal and external. And I feel bad because I wish I could do, there's a lot, I know there's especially a lot of people kind of outside our group that had reached out and said, hey, is there any way we can we can get you in? So but we ran, and I'm trying to think who, and I don't know if I have the list. So I think Josh, you were in right on Thursday. Don, I was really happy that I was able to connect with Don. He hadn't been to Adepticon for a couple of years for a bunch of different reasons, and even this year he was a little iffy on that because I think he has some family stuff going on too. But I'm glad he was there, and I know Ty, he appreciated getting to play with you with that. And so I'd reached out to him and said, hey, I have one spot in our Thursday night game. Do you want to jump in? And so it was great to have him kind of be there and join us. Because again, I hadn't seen him, and he's like you said, Ty, it's just a great guy. And I know how much he has enjoyed the game and the Space Hulk game in the past. And then we had Will. I think Will in that one, right? Will was in that one. Mm-hmm. Brian was supposed to be, but we gave his spot away to Aaron from Independent Characters, who also happened to be hanging around. And when Brian got delayed, I think because of some of his kid stuff or something, he jumped in there. And I think Eric was in that one. Yep. If I would look up, I would get it through.
Jeremy too, right?
Was that? Yeah, Jeremy was Thursday night. Yep. our friend Jeremy, who's responsible for a lot of our BoD wear, different kinds of T-shirts, and the blue. Where's my blue one? Oh, my blue sweatshirt is Jeremy, as he's in the. We say he's in the fashion industry, the garment industry. What do we? What do you call it? He probably doesn't listen, so I can say whatever.
Design,
yeah, whatever. He knows how to put stuff on T-shirts. But I'm very underselling his. So we appreciate his stuff there. So yeah, so during that, that was a lot of fun, but made for a long Thursday. No, between the setup and then running 2 games. But the family and friend ones are always fun because they're a little bit less there. So, so then we turned right around on Friday, and we ran our kind of normal Friday at 10. Trying to think if met a guy, Brian, who's I think in the Madison area, and who does a Warhammer Underworlds kind of podcast, and he was playing. We met him. We talked to him on Sunday too, when he was playing in the Warhammer Underworlds tournament there. So pretty good player there, but a really good guy. Really excited. Again, it's fun to see all these people who bring it. Again, that's what energizes me for the however this 6 months that I spend in this cave getting things ready. The psychic, the emotional exchange is all the people that get so excited about being able to participate, and as much as we are to run it. And Brian was one of those guys who was just very excited and talked about, hey, maybe we can do some stuff together, because he's talking about he played in if you guys have seen the Adeptus, like the full scale Titan battle thing, like he had done that too, and I think he was having some talks there, because I think the guy who's run that over years is looking for somebody to help maybe kind of run that event too on some of that. And he was talking about some of the things we do for this event and what makes it fun and whatever, and how can he maybe what can you do to keep that and generate some things into that event too. So appreciate Brian and getting to meet him. And I'm again, everybody was great, and it just people all kind of blur together, but I appreciate everybody that was there and everybody, and it was great to talk and meet over there. And then Friday afternoonish, I think evening, we ran our one and had a couple. I think there was a couple that was in the Geek Nation tour that came and played. Chris and Michelle.
Jose, I think, was in that one, maybe.
No, they're Saturday morning. They're kind of
okay.
Saturday morning, yeah. And I think I was trying to look at names quick and see if somebody. But yeah, that was again a good one. We ran Friday evening, and then again for my pacing, that's why John and I did not do Morton's dinner on that, and as much as I love that event, that just for us to be together and to hang out. I am glad that I kind of took it. I kind of had Friday evening as like, hey, this is to
decompress,
to kind of decompress, because now we got to do the push through. It's kind of halfway. If I wouldn't have that ability to recharge, it would have made a really rough Saturday, Sunday around some of that stuff. So we recharged a little bit on Friday. John and I just went and grabbed a real chill meal. And then kind of, I think John didn't even, we were going to do something, and John basically fell asleep, and I watched some basketball. That was and John's like, oh yeah, I was going to tell you. And I'm like, I just laid down and I didn't wake up. Yeah, it was cool. And then Saturday morning we turned around, and we had a bunch of the Geek Nation tour guys that we've seen year after year. Again, it's interesting to see people who either play in this every event, or they played, another buddy in their group gets in this year, and so they're there to kind of cheer them on. And and this year we had and so Jonathan, I'm gonna mispronounce the name totally. He came up, and all of a sudden, I think I had walked away, and then John's like, oh yeah, this one guy's, he came in, and we're like, and he has an accent, so we're not, he's definitely not, from the US. And then we were having, and somebody guessed, like South America somewhere, and then comes back later, and we ask him, and he's Argentina. So he's from Argentina, and we found out he's a buddy of Alejandro, who was last year was there and was one of our super fans, and he had emailed me in between and run that. So I found out that those two guys are buddies, and this year Jonathan got in, and they play Space Hulk against each other
Nice.
back in there, and so it's great. Yeah, so it's great again. And Alejandro kind of swung by too and said hi, and we talked to him too. So again, really a blast on Saturday morning, and then Saturday afternoon. That one we had Volker was in that one again. I'm calling out all the Geek Nation tour guys that we know. And then Raph gave his ticket to his buddy Ryan, who joined. So it was great to meet Ryan and get to play with him. And then I think I'm saying, and Rob Burton is the guy who had played in years past, and again a blast. Brought a ton of energy around some of that stuff too. Oh, and I think there was a couple of guys in here I think who had played before around some of that, which made it go through. So that got us through that, and then we did our final kind of Saturday night friends and family.
I like to call the Saturday night game not the friends and family game, but the industry and content creator game. Lead creative from Wizards, one of the founders of Goonhammer, independent character host, the voice of golden voice of the BoD. It was like
who's who.
It was a who's who.
And now that you say it that way, it was like the all-star all-star invite only. Yeah, so we had
tableside bourbon cocktails, like peanut butter pretzels. We went all out to cater an experience Saturday.
Yeah, so it's good. So as you said, we had
Raph and Tom,
Mr. Danner,
Matt Danner.
Matt Danner, you,
myself,
and then
Josh
and Jody from Independent Characters, and a few more of the of their independent character group hanging around. Like I said, Aaron got in on Thursday.
Yeah. Aaron was around.
A couple other guys
was around. Yeah. So that whole crew, it was super fun.
But yeah, you guys had that Saturday night was a lot of blast. And I'm always busy, and I saw a bottle of bourbon come out. And then I didn't realize that it was gone. I didn't realize you guys had drained it.
You see, Josh from ICs had lost his voice, so bourbon was going to help.
Yep.
Jody mentioned he's like, "Oh, I'm a bourbon guy." I was like, "Oh, would you like some?" And I reach into my backpack and I pull out the fresh bottle of Bib and Tucker that Danner and I somehow hadn't tapped into. One of the guys went and grabbed a bunch of the water cups, and then they're just getting poured, and people would walk over and be like, "Hey, can I have some?" I'd give a pour, and then Josh and Jody another pour. Before you know it, the bottle's gone. That 6-year Bib and Tucker went down in like four Marine turns.
But
good stuff.
It was good, and it
brother
was
Tuttlus, brother Chaplain Tuttlus, rushing towards the console, slaying everything in his way. We got to the landing deck, and we were questioning if Carl knew how to pilot a Thunderhawk, because we were going to just fire up the jets and take off.
Leave. Yep.
So Josh texted Carl and confirmed that Carl is a master pilot of Thunderhawk gunships. So brother Chaplain Tuttlus would have been able to exit if the pilot escort had not made it. So we covered our bases by confirming from the source. Yeah.
So that was good. Yeah. And I realized we didn't even, again, we all know it because we played it. So the scenario this year, again, this was, the idea was you had a ship, and basically Inquisitor Frost is back. He's kind of our recurring hero in here. He's got he's got his big battle fleet, because, systems have been going dark in the western fringes of the Imperium for some reason. He's out there. They get sucked out of the warp right in a bunch of a hive bio fleet kind of pulls him out, and he basically decides he's going to turn his ship into a giant bomb to hopefully cripple the Tyranid bio fleet, so that the rest of the battle fleet can get off. And the whole point is you're setting the objectives are to get to the center of the board, which is a big landing pad with an actual Thunderhawk sitting in the middle as your goal to get there. Elevators that you're trying to get to these elevators, you got to call the elevator down, get on the elevator before the time runs out, and get up to the landing deck and get ready to go. And then there's 2 of the 6 squads also have an escort part of their mission where they're trying to escort some of the crew members along, get them to the control panel to help set the self-destruct, and then get to the elevators and get off. So that was kind of the basic scenario. Again, kind of cooperative, but you each have your own kind of battles to get through. We had Imperial Fist, the classic Chaplain Ultramarines squad. We had Inquisitor Frost, and he was joined by Black Templar was his squad. Salamanders, which are the really cool 3D print. They were the ones that aren't the new, and they were all brand new, of the new GW Terminator size, or 3D print ones that Josh had done for the Salamanders that kind of went in again that were really cool. And there, who am I missing? Blood Angel class. You got to have Blood Angels in there. I think I got it. Did I miss
Deathwing?
Deathwing, and then and you got to have Deathwing. You got to have Blood Angel. You got to have Deathwing, and then we put the other one. So, and a few little tweaks in there. We did have a new weapon. The Deathwing guys had a heavy plasma cannon, which had some interesting rolls.
Did it ever overheat?
No, we did. I don't think it blew up on anybody. But people pushed it. That's the whole point. It's to make you.
Yep.
There's a deterrent there around.
Oh, for sure.
Around some of that. So that was kind of, that was the scenario. And again, it was, and then the goal was it was interesting that basically as we played each of the scenarios, we kind of kept track of, the whole goal was see how many people basically could they get the escort people get there and get their missions done, and how many of the 30 Marines, how many of them actually made it to the landing pad at the end. And basically we hovered somewhere around 50 to 60%, I think was the number. I don't know if anybody, I'm trying to think what the low, if somebody got under. I want to see if there was a 14. I think somewhere between 14 and 20 out of the 7 scenarios that we ran were where we ended up. So that was, I think that was Space Hulk. That was it. And again, yeah, appreciate all the people and a million people that walked by and enjoyed the table and said nice things. And
so Troy is always too humble. And I'm going to take the mic for a minute to just say that when you think about creating experiences for others and selfless kind of time and energy and passion, like this Space Hulk game encapsulates like what is great about this hobby and about the people, and Troy does an amazing job facilitating. So like check out the tweets. Raph tweeted about the game. The joke tableside was it's the world's largest Space Hulk game. We're yet to be proven wrong with that claim. And every year just keeps innovating and adding and making it bigger and better and more special. This year he printed miniature travel size Space Hulk games to hand out to all the attendees.
I brought one here. Yep.
And
so let's see if I can get
then after hours stays and lets us play and hang out. And so shout out Troy, the Bodfather, for just continuing to, I think, create the best gaming experience at Adepticon. And I might be jaded, I might be biased, but I don't really care what other people think or have to say, because Troy's the best and you don't have him in your gaming group. So GFY.
Sucks to be you.
Respectfully.
I appreciate that. And I guess my whatever mantra, my leading thing is this all started out as what would I want to play in? Like, how do I make something that's really what I continue to do, is like, what I think would be really cool, and what would be really cool for an event that I would want to go play in. And that's what I try and create. And I appreciate that works, but the other people also think that this is cool for them to play in. So
you nail it every year. It's fantastic.
Let's go from Space Hulk to Golden Demon. I know we haven't touched on that or the of the Mighty. I forget the What of the Mighty that Atomic Mass Games does for the Crisis Protocol, but both are painting competitions. One is all Atomic Mass Games MCP models. Golden Demon is all Games Workshop. I had a chance to go through the case earlier in the weekend. I didn't really go later, but I did see, I think it's Richard Gray's Squig, which was incredible. There was a Saurus unit that I think won gold for like fantasy unit or squad or whatever. Can't think of the artist's name, but it was fantastic. Ninjon's display was insane. There's just every year there's really great stuff. And questionable how they critique and judge and what feedback they give, but like you see some really incredible stuff on display. I did not get a nomination for my Playin and Slayin Express. I tried to enter it. They said they wouldn't accept 3D printed models. Something about it has to be Games Workshop or sculpted. But did you guys see anything in the painting displays that was super cool or that you want to mention?
I didn't get to spend a lot of time. That's my only, I mean, not really regret is that I did. I spent a lot of time running Space Hulk, and I didn't get enough time to do that. And even Saturday, Saturday we run around a little bit and catch up on stuff. And I was just happy to sit with you guys and drink some beer on Saturday night rather than go check out things. So. But again, after the fact, I thought the Golden Demon stuff was extraordinary, and also did the MCP, was it only MCP stuff, or did they have Star Wars stuff in there yet, or not yet?
Star Wars,
or maybe next year.
Shelf. Yeah, maybe next year. I don't know. Maybe there was, but I only saw Crisis Protocol. I did see this really fantastic Mysterio with some non-metallic metals on the chest that I think had been finished maybe at Adepticon in a hotel room. That was in the display case, and it was really great. And then also there was a Hulk there that looked really good. That was finished in advance of Adepticon, but don't want to miss that.
Yeah, and I did see I'm trying to think. I did talk to Sam Lenz, who's he's a Wisconsin guy, isn't he? Too? Yeah.
Is he really?
I think so. I think he's in there. I think he's in our area, but I know I follow him on Instagram, and I saw he won a bunch of stuff. And then he did swing by Space Hulk, and I chatted with him just a little bit too.
Does he want to come on the show and talk about the hobby in Wisconsin and Space Hulk?
We would have to see.
I thought maybe you talked to him, Troy.
No, I did, but I just talked about Space Hulk. We talked about Space Hulk. He was trying to figure out what he needed to play. He wanted to play.
Oh, that's fair. Let's see, Adepticon guys. What are we missing in our coverage? I feel like there was other stuff that I'm omitting. Oh, Age of Sigmar team tournament. Saturday and Sunday, some really fantastic display boards. But once again, Adam Trunzo delivering a floating like fortress, volcanic like rock, likely the realm of Azir like display, supported on acrylic rods and suspended like probably 8 or 9 feet long and like 12 feet just ridiculous display board. I don't know how he does it, and he keeps innovating and doing really crazy great stuff. So they won this year. They did, for the first year ever, they did a like best between all like the 40K and AOS, like a best in show, and they won that for their display board, better than any of the 40K ones. So that team of Butcher and Brendan, Trunzo, and Andrew maybe. Now I'm so disappointed in myself. But anyways, that team, really great job. Brendan's Orcs, like
Yeah.
he, as a competitive gamer, has really been hobby forward the last couple of years as he's worked on stuff, and he did a great job with some like checkered patterns and yellow armor, and Butcher's, always just incredible. But really cool display, really great effort. And there were other ones too, like Jacob Berry and Mike Scaletti had this huge Chaos Tower, and they were the 4 Chaos Gods, their factions. Their board won like best structural. But
yeah,
some cool stuff.
When I saw that one there, I was thinking the same thing, Adam, as we were trying to like dissect it about, all right, how did he assemble this thing? Because I feel like he had the same. I can imagine he builds it and he's like, how the hell am I going to get this in a car and get this there and like us like I could feel him. I'm feeling the same things I worry about. Yeah, you can build a cool thing, but then you actually have to transport it and reassemble it in another place. Yeah, that's always a whole nother challenge. Anything, and we got swag bags. I mean, it was
it was a good one.
Yeah, they did it a little different this year. They didn't do the VIGs, and they just they basically, everybody just had, if you got the premium, you still had the choice to not get a swag bag, but but the premiums were slightly, I think what they did is not all the premiums had exactly all the same stuff. Like they kind of spread some things around, but they were all equivalent in terms of, I think, the amount of stuff you got and
like
and things like that. But
it was super good value. So there was a Marvel Crisis Protocol character box, which runs about $50 retail. There was a Shatterpoint squad box, which is about $50 retail. And then there was the Start Collecting size boxes, or so Age of Sigmar, Start Collecting, or whatever they're calling, Spearhead, Vanguard, whatever. And the Combat Patrol boxes for $40K. So like I got a Custodes box that's got to be like $125, $140 box. So like you paid, I think it was $100 for the swag bag, maybe $125.
Yeah, your badge plus the premium for badge plus swag bag was around, I think around 100 and some. Yep.
And then we got tanks. We got Gale Force 9's new tank.
Yeah, it's over there
box. So.
And then Legion, there was a small
Legion character, like it was loaded up. I threw out a bunch of stuff at the hotel this year. I didn't bother bringing tons of crap home. Like I just brought home what mattered. Was that in your?
This was in my box. Yep.
Oh, nice. Cool. I had some weird Civil War book about a boat on a river.
It's not signed though, Paul. How come Paul didn't like sign them all? Or Jen should have. But
a little Ethereum.
I gotta find I'm gonna find a good person to pass that forward to.
Gift that to, yeah.
Yep.
For those of you not watching on YouTube, if you are, please like and subscribe and follow us here. We love seeing our count grow from 20 to 30 to 42, 3, 44. I'm watching it go up now. But yeah, so Paul and Jen DK wrote an Ethereum novel a couple years ago now, I think, called Malcontent, and Winged Hussar Publishing did that. So there was various war books and novels and fiction that were thrown in. So Troy got a lucky winner bag.
Yep.
Let's see. Any special Adepticon shout outs? I mean, I think obviously the people continue to make this a great time. The hangouts after, the late night painting, the Space Hulk. Danner always comes from Seattle, one of a few times a year that we just get to like hang out and play games and socialize with him. Eric, seeing him there was awesome because haven't gamed with him in a while. It's always just it's cool who's there and old friends near and far. So I know I've omitted probably dozens of people that I saw and hugged, and but it was fun. It was nice. My favorite part was just having free time, not doing one of the big tournaments that's like a 2-day and just hanging out, like all sorts of time to to wander around, hang out, and take it in. So
Yeah, there's something to be said for now that because there are plenty of the, I'll call them smaller events, or kind of self-contained events, and there is something to be said for just kind of doing some of those and not just committing to doing one of the big 2-day tournaments, because I feel like there's enough, like and it is now, like there's no way any one person can kind of take in all of Adepticon. Everybody's gonna have their slice of how they got through it, kind of like Gen Con has turned into for many, many years, but it's now Adepticon. You're very much you're going to have an experience in your lane, and the other person could have a completely different kind of gaming experience, both hopefully very good, but nobody's gonna you're gonna kind of have to navigate through it. So it was really good. Again, and I thank Matt Weeks for again giving us he's so good to us with giving us a great spot for Space Hulk. I only ever get to say kind of hi to him usually when we're getting a badge or walking by or something, but appreciate him and Hank and everything that they do, and giving us our little area now up there where we get to run for 3 days. So
Troy, you know how you alleviate the wait list and get more people in the door? You print everything again, and you just commission some of the other BoD members to support, and you run 2 tables.
I need another car. Like I need another car.
Good thing people in the area with vehicles. You know the recipe now. You do the printing, you farm out the painting, you turn this into BoD Enterprises. Before you know it, you're leading specialty Space Hulk tours. You're an affiliate of Geek Nation. Like something to be done here.
No, I think
we bring BoD Space Hulk to conventions around the world.
There we go.
We do an augmented reality and AR version with like a little tiny camera that goes through the halls so people can play virtually.
We'll see.
Man, these are great ideas.
These are but what will happen, I think, is we need to get shift, because right now the limiting factor is really me and John, and our ability to go time after time. So it's almost like it would be to train up some more people to take a shift here or there, because then we could run a few more,
swap around.
You just wouldn't get me, but I can instill and empower someone to do a version of me.
Have you ever done the Ducks tours in the Dells?
Yep.
You know how at the end you can like tip, and we could have a contest like for what other BoD affiliates run the best games, the most engaging. We could like get fan surveys filled out from attendees. I think there's something to be done here. Josh looks ready. He's stoked.
I'm always ready.
We will be. But we'll be back. We'll be back next year and bigger and better. I'm actually, again, I think we all came back this year even more than maybe in past years, and it felt like a lot of times there was a lull, like, oh, Adepticon, and maybe because we were always in kind of a really push to get stuff done or like that, and we'd come back and like everybody would kind of be, oh, I'm done with hobby for a while, and and I think we all came back, and we talked about in hobby, people were diving back in and already thinking, and Josh, like you said, we were already talking about what ideas can we do for next year, and the same thing. John and I were like, and Ben were like, oh, what are we gonna, what's the next thing to do around some of that? So it was interesting this year. We got really energized coming out of Adepticon, and we've just continued. And we're somebody get the count, whatever it is, 340 some days, whatever we're at.
Well, I can't count down to Adepticon, Troy, because I think this time of the show we usually talk about what's coming up.
Yeah.
And the countdown is now on for BoDCon. Attendees are locked in. We're like 3 months ish.
We're under 100 days. We broke 100 days Todd.
Yep.
I have
Yeah,
98 on my calendar here.
Oh, trust me, I know. As I try to lock down attendees and collect money, the next thing is collecting waivers and final deposits. But Origins in June, BodCon in July, Gen Con in August, all sorts of fun. And then we hit the fall convention cycle. Before I go into anything further, though, Troy, Josh, Adepticon wouldn't be the same without you guys. Super fun. Any other noteworthy notifications, announcements before we land this Thunderhawk with Chaplain Brother Tuttlus?
No, I had a blast. Appreciate you guys. And
I will
everybody
do.
that-
I'll do one. I have one little note. One of our call outs. So when we were on Wednesday, was it Wednesday? Wednesday, I think it was. Yeah, Wednesday before the con, we were playing Zombicide yet again because Ben had not played the scenario that he needed to actually run that evening. So we brought it out and we set it up in the bar, in that little table off on the side of the bar at Adepticon over in the, it's kind of in that little corner. So we put it up there, and it was kind of funny because we were just playing, and behind me, some people walk up and they're like, "Oh, what are you playing?" and whatever there, and a little bit of an accent. And then I kind of turn around and I realize it is, and I won't know their names, but it was the whole Army Painter crew. So it was the owner of Army Painter and the head artist down there and a few other of their staff members on there. So it was kind of funny. And we talked a little bit about what we were doing over, but it was that was kind of a cool way to kick off.
Yeah, and
so
we're like, hey,
final.
most of this is speed paints.
Right, yeah, right. And we did talk. Well, it was funny, and they're like, because we like Zombicide, and then I think the owner's like, "Oh, don't I think we sell a set for that, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah, so
Nice.
Again, typical that is kind of the Adepticon experience, right? There are a lot of it's a big convention, but really a small world, and you do get to talk to a lot of people who are fairly important in the industry and get to meet them and talk to them.
For sure. Josh, next year, if I need models, though, we got to figure out a different plan for.
I mean, I don't put them with my badge, I guess, is the
yeah
because the badge will get left.
Are you guys? Are you familiar with the movie White Christmas with Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby?
Mm-hmm.
Not in detail, but yes.
Bing Crosby, Danny Kaye saves him and gets a shoulder injury when they're overseas, when like a wall falls. And every so often throughout the movie, he will like hold his shoulder to get sympathy or remind Bing Crosby's character of what he did. I'm going to every so often, Josh, just hold up the Chaos Spawn and remind you of the pain and suffering inflicted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It was a good story, and it was a lot of fun.
It was. It really. It was. I'm in jest.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Speaking of ingest, leave us some reviews. Tell us what you think. Comment on YouTube. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever, download. I don't care if you listen. Just do the things that drive the traffic. Hit up Goonhammer, click through on the Media Network site, do all the good stuff, do all the things. Keep on listening at Playin Slayin Show on X until that platform becomes even worse.
Yeah, we're slowly needing ourselves off of that one. I do want to, as you say that though, I think we do have, as I look at numbers and whether people listen or not, but I do appreciate, I think more and more people do, whether that's our Goonhammer friends that it goes more exposure, whatever. We do see our numbers go up and up kind of every month, and do appreciate any new listeners here, people who have joined us. Hopefully you find what we do. Again, we don't take any of this too seriously. This is us having fun. And so, but we do appreciate any of the new people, and yeah, feel free to drop us a line, even if it's just to say hi and whatever. So thank you.
Yeah, good call. And maybe someday you'll be here on the show, because that's how it works. People like Dr. Gabe become a medical expert, or a future episode with Stu, or Josh from Arizona. We'll see. We know you're out there. We love you all. We welcome you to listen. So thanks for the new listeners. And yeah, I think that's probably going to land this episode. So keep the dice rolling, the drinks on ice, and no matter what, keep playing and slaying.